Hi guys, this is Carmela with Equine Helper, and today I wanted to talk about how to tell if your horse is too hot. We just had a very hot summer in Oklahoma, and unfortunately I got to witness some horses being overheated where we had to call the vet and get advice. So I think this is a good video to talk about. Usually it can be very subtle whether your horse is too hot, and then that can lead to more health problems. So being able to address that and catch problems before your horse gets too dehydrated or before they start colicking is important. So what I saw in horses this summer is that if a horse is extremely overheated, it almost seems as if they're colicking. They'll stand up and they'll lay down a lot. They'll just seem very sluggish and not themselves. They're probably not going to want to eat or drink anything. With one horse in particular, we actually had to use a syringe in order to get them to intake water. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but if your horse is refusing to drink and you know they're dehydrated, you're going to have to do that. If your horse is too hot, a great thing to do would be to cool them down by hosing them off. This will just help their body temperature to regulate back. I've read some things that you're not supposed to let standing water sit on your horse because it actually incubates their body and holds that heat in. So a good idea would be to hose down your horse with cold water and then just use a sweat scraper to wipe all that excess water away. If your horse is overheated, I would encourage them to eat grass. Grass just naturally has water in it, and so by eating it, they're refueling their body. In the hot season, to avoid your horse becoming overheated or dehydrated, you can feed electrolytes to your horse. Usually it just comes as a supplement, and it's a powder that you can put into the water. It just encourages them to drink more. A salt block would do this as well. It's kind of like a natural electrolyte. It just encourages them to drink more water. Making sure your horse has access to water and that they know where their water bin is out in the field is important. Sometimes if your horse is in a really big field, it may not drink water as much as it's supposed to. Horses tend to stick with the herd, so if the water bin is across the field, it's gonna take the whole herd migrating that way for your horse to probably go and get a drink. So if it's really hot out, another way your horse can drink more water is by putting them in a smaller field where they have direct access to water, and it's only a few steps away if they need to go get anything. One of the first things I do if it's really hot out and I go to get my horse is I just automatically lead them over to the watering bin and let them get a drink of water. My horse personally does really good about staying hydrated. I did have one horse that I went to check on, and I could tell she was a little dehydrated, but she took the water really easily. She ate grass and she was back to normal, so that was all good. Another thing you can do to help your horse intake water if they may be a little dehydrated is soak their food in water. If you want to do alfalfa pellets, that's usually great because it absorbs so much water, and horses like alfalfa. So I did that with this particular horse, and then she was perfectly back to normal within the hour. When your horse is too hot, their body temperature will naturally rise. A horse has a body temperature around 99 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 37 to about 38 degrees Celsius. So when you take your horse's temperature, the temperature will usually be higher than that. If you don't have a thermometer on hand, usually just touching the horse, you can tell just the way their body feels if they're really hot. So that's something to keep in mind. It's just a quick test you can run whenever you go out to see them and it's really hot. Usually if it's hot outside, you'll notice that your horse just naturally sweats when they're out in the field. That can be a good thing. The sweat shows that they have water in their body. But that also means, they need to stay hydrated. So if you walk out to the field and you notice that your horse isn't sweating, they possibly could be dehydrated, so you're gonna want to test for that. To test to see if your horse is dehydrated, there are a few things you can do. One of them is you pinch the skin on their neck. You're gonna pull it back about an inch and just slightly twist. And when you let the skin go, it'll either bounce back to its original form really fast, so it'll be nice and elastic, or when you let the skin go, it's gonna stay kind of up in the way you pinched it. It'll look kind of like a tent. And this means that the body has lost water, so the skin is as elastic as it usually is. So that's a really quick test you can do. It's usually the first thing I do when I go out and it's a really hot day. I just walk up to my horse, pinch their neck, make sure they have all the water they need. Another way you can see if your horse is dehydrated is by doing a capillary refill test. This requires you to stick your hands in your horse's mouth, so be prepared to do that. But what you do is you're going to pull your horse's lip up so you can see the gum above their front teeth. You're going to take your thumb and press into their gum for about 10 seconds. And you can apply, good steady pressure. When you take your thumb off, anytime you do this, you'll see the blood go back into the spot where the thumb was. If it takes more than 3 seconds, then the horse is probably dehydrated. So it'll take 3 seconds for the blood to refill into where your thumb was. That's another quick and easy way you can check. Also just the color of the gums in general. A horse that's dehydrated will act sluggish. This is one of the first things I usually notice, and I'm like, man, my horse needs water. When I'm leading them back from the field, they're not their happy-go-lucky selves and they don't have a pep in their step. I can just tell, like, they're so hot. So when that happens, it would be great. Get them some water, hose them off, put them in the shade. Just keep an eye on them to make sure that they can cool off and that they can, get their water levels back up. Just some tips for monitoring your horse on a hot day. In Oklahoma, we have plenty of days where the heat index is over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, or that'd be about 37.5 degrees Celsius. When it's like that, or even like in the 90s, I just don't ride my horse. I don't want to risk him becoming overheated, and I don't want to risk myself becoming overheated. So that's just a good rule to go by to make sure everyone's healthy. I will say, if it is that hot, I always go and check on my horse. I won't let him go a day where it's that hot and I'm not checking on them. Just because if a horse becomes overheated and they get dehydrated, it can go downhill very fast. Always be checking on your horse. Always be monitoring them throughout the day to make sure they have the water they need. Another time you're going to want to be careful about your horse getting overheated is actually in the winter, which is surprising. But in Oklahoma, we have a lot of days where temperatures fluctuate, so it'll be cold in the morning, but then by afternoon it's probably 50 or 60 degrees. So if your horse has a nice thick coat and then you're putting a winter coat on top of that, they can get really hot under there if it's 60 degrees. So if you're blanketing your horse during the winter, always check them on warmer days. Always go remove the blankets just so they don't get overheated. Also in the winter, if you're working your horse really hard and they sweat under their winter coat, they can become overheated from that. Their winter coat helps to insulate their body temperature, and so if they get worked to where their body temperature goes up, that coat automatically keeps them at that temperature. So always be careful about that. They'll probably demonstrate the signs the same way. They'll just be sluggish, maybe a little dehydrated, won't want to eat. Just something to keep in mind. Horses that will tend to get overheated more easily than others are horses that have dark skin or a dark coat. So like a black horse, or the gray horses that have the black skin. Also draft horses, they're just naturally bigger, and so their body temperatures are just going to be higher. They're really built, so they have a lot of muscle in them that's going to keep in that heat. So I would recommend, if you have horses like that, to always check on them and be cautious. Another thing to check on in the hot months is sunburn on your horses that have pink skin. Well, this probably doesn't cause overheating. It's very uncomfortable for the horse, so check that out. Watch out for that. Another tip for keeping your horse from getting overheated is, if you stable your horse, make sure that the stable allows some airflow and ventilation. You can also put up a box fan just to help circulate the air and offer that nice breeze. Usually when your horse goes in a stall, they have a 5-gallon bucket. So on hot days, I would recommend you put an extra 5-gallon bucket in there just so the horse can drink if they need to. As a horse owner, there's many things to be aware of when it comes to your safety and also your horse's safety. Click the link on the screen to check out our video, Horse Safety Tips for Beginners, to get more information on how you can be safe around horses. I want to thank all of you for watching, and I hope this video helps you with caring for your horse. Subscribe to our channel, like this video, and go and visit our website, equinehelper.com. Have a great day.